Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. As the ringing pierced through the stillness of the night and pulled me from the depths of sleep, I felt Jennifer, my wife of 18 years, stir beside me, groggy and disoriented. I instinctively reached for the phone on the nightstand, my heart bracing for the worst. "Hello," I answered, my voice thick with sleep. "Is Sophia there?" The voice was young, male, dripping with arrogance. "Who is this?" Irritation crept into my tone. "Does it matter who I am?" he shot back. "Just tell me. Is she there?" By now, Jennifer was fully awake, sitting up and looking at me cautiously. "Marcus, who's calling?" "Some kid looking for Sophia," I growled, my frustration mounting. "And if I find out who he is, he's going to regret calling." "Oh, tough guy," the voice sneered through the receiver. "I'm tough too. Now wake up Sophia and tell her to get the phone." I disconnected the call with a sharp motion. "What are you going to do?" Jennifer asked, watching me put on my robe. "Going downstairs to disconnect the phones. I'm sure he'll try calling back." I was already moving toward the hallway. "I'll plug them in again tomorrow before I head to work." I was seething, unsure if I'd be able to fall back asleep. Would the kid be foolish enough to call my 14-year-old daughter tomorrow and identify himself as the 2 a.m. caller? I doubted it. But if he called again in the middle of the night, I would be ready for him. When I finally made it back upstairs and climbed into bed, I had no idea how that call would change my life. The next day, I took a longer lunch than usual and drove to a Radio Shack not far from my office at the Columbus manufacturing plant. They had a neat little gadget there that I had used a couple of years prior. It was no larger than a pack of cigarettes and incredibly easy to use. Consisted of a plastic box with 2 cords. One was a phone jack that plugged into the back of a house phone, and the other was a mini jack that plugged into the microphone input of a cassette recorder. It also had a female jack for the phone cord from the wall socket. The device was voice activated, so when someone started talking on the phone, it would record both sides of the conversation. Once connected to one phone, it worked with every phone in the house. When I got home, it took me no more than 2 minutes to hook it up to the phone in my office. If the early morning caller rang back, I would have a recording that I could play for my daughter and her friends, hoping one of them could identify his voice. That evening, as we sat at the dinner table listening to my son talk about his day at school, I got the distinct feeling I was being watched. I looked up at Jennifer and she was staring at me with that familiar look in her eyes. I grinned slightly, trying to focus on my son's chatter. But when you've been married as long as we have, you know that little look that says, "I want you." Just the anticipation was enough to get me excited for the rest of the night. Even after 18 years, our intimacy never grew stale. Later, as bedtime approached, I had to casually cover my lap when Madison, my 16-year-old daughter, came up to kiss me goodnight. By the time Jennifer and I made it to the bedroom, I had only one thing on my mind, and it wasn't some kid with a late-night call. Jennifer was already under the sheets when I crawled in next to her. She turned on her side, reached around me, and rubbed her hand on my stomach for a moment. Then she wasted no time moving downward. "What's this, Marcus?" she asked teasingly. "You're insatiable. You know that? Don't even pretend." I replied with a smirk. "You've been wanting this all night. I know those looks." I wrapped my arm around her and kissed her. Most of the time, I was the more aggressive one in our relationship, but tonight it was all about her. We stayed like that, our bodies pressed together, trying to slow our breathing back to normal. Suddenly, Jennifer's eyes shot open wide with shock as we heard Madison giggling from the hallway. "You think she heard us?" Jennifer whispered. "Either that or she's got a friend in her room," I joked. Jennifer playfully hit me in the chest. "Don't even say something like that. We need to think about soundproofing the bedroom." We cuddled up, closed our eyes, and drifted off to sleep. My last conscious thought was wondering whether our mystery caller would wake me up again in the night. Sure enough, just after 2 a.m., my phone rang again. I ignored Jennifer's advice to hang up right away and kept the caller talking, baiting him. This time, he made several threats and inappropriate remarks. I managed to gather enough information to identify him and make sure I had what I needed for potential action. I hung up, disconnected the phones again, and finally returned to sleep, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. The next morning, I reconnected the phones before heading out to work, but I didn't think to disconnect the recorder. It didn't occur to me until later in the day. I knew the kids had used the phone before my call, so I'd need to go through several calls to find the one I was looking for. Oh well, I thought, it won't take long to find what I need, and it'll be well worth it to see the look on that kid's face when I confront him. I left the office a few minutes early and was fortunate to avoid rush hour traffic. As I got closer to home in our Dublin neighborhood, I thought I saw my wife 4 or 5 cars ahead. She turned into our side street and I followed her, pulling into the driveway just moments after she did. She seemed a bit startled when she looked up and saw me. "Marcus, you're early," she said, grabbing a couple of packages from the back seat. "Just by a few minutes. Traffic was light." I gestured toward the bags. "What did you buy?" "Oh, just a pair of shoes and a couple of things." She handed me some packages quickly. "You take these. I'll get the rest." For some reason, it felt like Jennifer was acting a bit nervous, almost like she didn't want me to see something. Then I noticed a Victoria's Secret bag on the seat. Aha, I thought that's it. She's got something special planned. I felt a flutter in my chest, but not wanting to spoil the surprise, I pretended not to notice the bag as we walked inside. She left it in the car on purpose, and I helped her bring the other bags upstairs. "I'll put everything away later," she said. "Right now, I need to get dinner started." She gave me a quick kiss on the lips, then hurried to the kitchen. Since I had nothing else to do before dinner, I decided to go to my home office and start going through the tape to find a conversation with the mysterious caller. As I rewound and played, I suddenly heard my wife's voice, followed by a man's voice. "You know how much you love me," the voice said. Jennifer responded, "I don't want to hurt Marcus. I love him." My chest tightened as I realized what I was hearing. My hands trembled as I pressed stop, struggling to catch my breath. Then I heard Brandon's voice again. "For Pete's sake, what's your problem? Marcus goes golfing with his friends, right? He does it every Sunday morning." And just like that, my world shattered. Brandon continued, "By the time he has a couple of beers after the round, it'll be almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. By the time he gets home, you'll meet me at the Days Inn at 10 o'clock. That gives us plenty of time. I'll get there early and get the room. Then I'll text you the number like always." Jennifer hesitated. "I don't know, Brandon. I really don't feel right doing this anymore." "Come on," he coaxed. "I even have a gift for you. It's waiting at Victoria's Secret." "A gift?" Her tone brightened slightly. "What did you buy me?" "The prettiest little black nightgown they make. I bought it the other day and told them to hold it for you. Just go up to the counter and give them your name. You might need some ID, but it's there waiting for you." Jennifer seemed unsure. "And how am I supposed to explain it to Marcus?" "Just tell him you bought it for him," Brandon replied smoothly. "Don't let him see it right away, though. Not until after Sunday. I want to be the first to see you in it. It's almost completely see-through." Jennifer giggled, but remained doubtful. "I don't know, Brandon. I'll tell you what," Brandon said confidently. "If I don't show by 10:30, start without me." "Yeah, right," Jennifer responded, but it sounded like she was starting to give in. "I'll see you Sunday. Don't forget the nightgown." "I won't," she replied. "I wanted to get some new shoes anyway. I'll pick it up today." They said their goodbyes and hung up. My chest tightened again. It was getting hard to breathe, and I didn't even realize I was crying until I turned off the recorder. I sat there in shock, staring at the wall. My thoughts felt disconnected, like I was in a trance. Couldn't be possible. I had known this woman for nearly 20 years. It was hard to accept, but denial wasn't helping. The reality was sinking in, and I couldn't shake it. "Come and get it," I heard Jennifer call from the kitchen. Dinner time. How was I supposed to sit at that table pretending everything was fine? I wasn't even hungry. I sat quietly, pushing my food around on the plate. It wasn't until Sophia started telling me about her day at school that I remembered what I had just heard. That's when I realized I had two things to deal with now. I promised myself I'd handle it. Honey, do you feel all right? Jennifer asked with concern. You're awfully quiet tonight. You haven't eaten much. I don't feel very well, I told her. I think I'll go out for a walk, get some fresh air. I often took walks when I needed to clear my head. It helped me think and process things logically. As I walked, my emotions swung between extreme anger and hurt. I didn't know which one was stronger. By the end of my walk, though, I had a plan, one that would address my anger. It would all depend on my golf buddies, but I was fairly confident they would be on my side. I still wasn't sure how to handle the overwhelming hurt, though. When I got home, I tried to distract myself by watching TV with the kids before they went to bed. I could feel Jennifer's eyes on me from time to time. I knew she was concerned, and deep down I knew she loved me. That's what made it so hard to understand. How could she do this to me? To us? It didn't make sense. Do you feel any better after your walk? She asked when I finally spoke. A little, but not much, I responded. I'll turn in early. Good night. I started up the stairs. I noticed Jennifer watching me with a concerned expression. She had every right to be worried. I pretended to be asleep when she slipped into bed beside me about an hour later, but sleep wouldn't come. I spent the entire night analyzing my options, and of course, there were the kids to consider, too. I stared at Jennifer as the early morning light barely filtered through the curtains. What the hell, I thought. I might as well get up. It was too late to sleep now. I quietly got up, avoiding Jennifer, and used the bathroom down the hall to shower, get dressed, and leave. I was almost 2 hours early for work, so I stopped at a restaurant on the way. I was just finishing my eggs when my cell rang. Hello, I answered. Marcus, what's the matter? Are you angry with me for some reason? Jennifer's voice was soft. No, honey, why? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Well, you were awfully quiet last night, and then you got up early and left without waking me or giving me a kiss. I can't remember the last time you left without kissing me goodbye. What's wrong, honey? What did I do? I realized that I had to be careful. I didn't want to give myself away. I still didn't know what to do about my marriage, but I knew what I would do about Brandon. I didn't want her canceling their Sunday plans. I'm sorry, honey, I said. You didn't do anything. I wasn't feeling well last night, and I didn't sleep well. I woke up early this morning, so I thought I'd just come into work and let you sleep. Are you sure that's all? She asked, still sounding concerned. Yes, that's all there is to it, I assured her, though I couldn't help but wonder if she had called it off. If she had, I wouldn't even know. But no matter what, I decided to go ahead with my plan. Once my golfing buddies were at their jobs, I called them up to ask if they could meet me after work the next day. I didn't share my whole plan with them, just what they needed to know. I warned them that it could be risky and they might even be questioned by the police. I told them that if anyone wanted to back out, now was the time, but each of them swore their loyalty, so I felt confident moving forward. After they left, I ordered another drink and sat thinking. I knew exactly what I was going to do with Brandon, but when it came to my wife, my mind was in a fog. All I could think about was my kids and how much I loved Jennifer. It's like I was trying to hold on to something, some piece of normalcy. If only she would wear that black nightgown for me before Sunday, it would mean something to me, like throwing Brandon's affair in his face. Friday night came and I faked being too tired for anything intimate. Saturday morning we had breakfast together, but I was a little melancholic. Jennifer asked if I was okay, and I assured her I was fine. I said I had some shopping to do for a home project. As I drove off, I couldn't shake the feeling that it might have been the last time we would all have breakfast together as a family. My first stop was the Salvation Army store. I found everything I needed and even a bonus. My next stop was the hardware store for 4 small magnets, followed by a trip to a sports store for a tire valve tool. Finally, I stopped at the drugstore before heading home by early afternoon. The rest of the day, I kept busy with garage work and yard chores. Though my anger and frustration were building, I needed to focus on Brandon. I couldn't afford to let my emotions spill over in front of Jennifer, especially after I had added something extra to her coffee that evening. By 9 o'clock, she was apologizing, saying she didn't know why, but she couldn't stay awake. I told her it was okay and that she should rest. Jennifer kissed me goodnight and was sound asleep by 10 o'clock. I checked on the kids, and once they were all tucked in, I waited. Soon, the house was quiet and I could begin my plan. I checked on Jennifer and the kids to make sure they were all fast asleep before slipping out of the house. The street was deserted as I made my way to my destination. I'd seen a house on my way to work that had 3 cars in the driveway, and one was always parked under a tarp. It looked like they didn't use that car much, so I figured I'd take the risk. I made my way into the yard and gently raised the tarp to remove the license plates. In less than 2 minutes, I was done. I had both plates and was making my way back home, hoping the owners wouldn't drive the car for a while, making the discovery of the stolen plates unlikely for some time. I went into my garage and carefully soldered the small magnets I had gotten at the hardware store onto each corner of both plates. This way, I would be able to attach and remove them from the metal license plates of another vehicle within seconds. I put them into the duffel bag I bought earlier and placed everything in the trunk of my car. It was still over 3 hours before I had to be up for Sunday morning golf with my friends. So, I quietly lay down next to my wife trying to get some rest. After turning off the alarm, I checked on Jennifer. She was still fast asleep. I didn't want to talk to her, so I used the hall bathroom to shower and get dressed before leaving the house. I swapped phones with Jennifer's phone since they were almost identical, hoping she wouldn't notice until she realized she wasn't getting Brandon's text with his room number. I was planning to get that before leaving. I took the small tool I got at the bike shop and carefully unscrewed the core from her left rear tire valve. I tested it by rubbing a little saliva on the end of the valve to see the bubbles, ensuring a very slow leak, just enough to give her a low tire and keep her from being on time for the rendezvous. When I got to the golf course, I made sure I was seen and heard by as many people as possible. I talked to the club pro about a non-existent glitch in my swing while waiting for the rest of my group. I stopped at the bar for a cup of coffee and an English muffin, shamelessly flirting with the barista to make sure she remembered I was there. When the rest of the guys arrived, we headed to the first tee and I hit a solid shot down the middle. We played the regular game until we reached the third tee, the one near the parking lot where I parted company for a while. Josh handed me the keys to his SUV and I switched the duffel bag from my car to his before heading out. Halfway between the motel and the golf course is a large forest preserve, a place where no one really goes. I drove all the way to the back, parked and changed into different clothes in the portable restroom. Then I attached the stolen plates to the SUV, and within minutes, I was on my way to the motel parking lot to wait for Brandon's text. I didn't have to wait long. Room number 112 appeared on Jennifer's phone. I backed up close to the door of his room and took a deep breath as I exited the vehicle. I had the wooden bat with me that I'd found at the Salvation Army, and I pulled the ski mask down over my face as I knocked on the door. Brandon opened it, surprised. What happened next was brief but decisive. When it was finished, I left quickly and drove back to the forest preserve, changed back into my golfing clothes, and removed the stolen plates. I packed everything, including the bat, into the duffel bag, and threw it into the swamp nearby. Any trace of evidence was gone. I called my friends to ask what hole they were on, and when I reached the course, I was back in the swing of things. My golf shot wasn't perfect, but it was a good way to get my mind off things. After finishing the round, I made sure the bartender remembered me being there. We had lunch and then we went on to finish the game. When the round ended, we sat around complaining about our games just like we always did, and I couldn't help but smile. I was feeling confident that my plan had worked with no physical evidence linking me to what had happened. I was pretty sure I was in the clear. I pulled into my driveway just like I always did after Sunday golf, and was surprised to see Jennifer's car in the same spot as I had left it. The tire was completely flat by now. Another surprise came when Jennifer greeted me with a smile and a peck on the cheek as I walked in the door. I looked around and saw that the kids were all doing their own thing, leaving us alone. "You're in a good mood," I said with a slight edge to my voice. "Did you drive the car this morning?" "Drive the car? No." "Oh, why do you ask?" "Where would I go?" "Oh, I don't know. I thought you might have gone out to meet Brandon at the motel." I didn't really mean to say that. It just came out, but in that moment it had to be said. I had finally made up my mind about what I needed to do regarding our marriage. Jennifer's eyes widened and her mouth dropped open. Every bit of energy seemed to drain from her body as she stumbled back, reaching for the arm of the couch before collapsing onto it. I watched as her eyes instantly filled with tears, realizing her secret was exposed. "You did know," she muttered. "I thought something was wrong the last couple of days, but I prayed it was something else." I watched her struggle to maintain control. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. I'm so sorry. I didn't go today because I'm calling it quits. It's over, Marcus. I'll never see him again. Promise. Never again." She looked up, her expression begging for forgiveness. How I wished I could give it to her, but I couldn't. "I'll be filing for divorce tomorrow, Jennifer. A one-time mistake in a drunken moment of weakness. I could have forgiven, but not this. Not this ongoing betrayal. Not the complete lack of respect for me and our family. This goes way beyond forgiveness." I saw her face turn to one of terror as I spoke. "After 18 years, I thought I knew you so well, but now you've shown me a side of you I never thought I'd see." I asked where the kids were. In a lifeless voice, she told me Madison, Sophia, and Ethan, our 12-year-old, were all out with friends. Only Grace, our youngest, was home in her room. I acknowledged her reply and told her I was going upstairs to take a shower. When I got to our room, I noticed Jennifer's purse still sitting on the dresser, so I took the opportunity to switch the phones. I wiped my fingerprints off hers as I returned it, slipping my own phone into my pocket. As I walked toward our closet to pick out a shirt and slacks, I saw it, the black see-through teddy hanging on her side. For the past couple of nights, it had symbolized hope. But now the flimsy material hung there, taunting me. It was a painful reminder of Jennifer's disloyalty. Until that moment, my thoughts were focused on anger and plotting my revenge. But then everything changed. The hurt and pain washed over me like a tidal wave, tearing pieces of my heart as it passed. Days of pent-up anxiety surfaced, and I angrily tore the garment off the hanger. My face twisted with rage, my jaw clenched tightly as I shredded the fabric to pieces just before collapsing into a ball of tearful despair. I heard Jennifer's voice softly. "Oh my God!" I looked up to see her standing in the doorway with her hand covering her mouth. "What have I done?" she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. I love you so much. You were never supposed to know. I never wanted to hurt you. I'm so sorry." It felt like 18 years of happiness had just turned into a painful memory. Jennifer ran to the bed and collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. I fought to control my own emotions as I slowly rose from the floor and made my way to the shower. Standing under the hot water, I experienced a whirlwind of emotions. Love, hate, anger, pain, thoughts of revenge mixed with feelings of leniency. I felt inadequate, as if I hadn't been the man I should have been to keep my wife. I felt like a fool for not detecting her deceit sooner. But there was also a sense of triumph for having uncovered the truth. The emotions clashed inside me, often overlapping. If I had to separate them, the pain felt the worst. I loved Jennifer with all my being. Losing someone you love like that, especially to betrayal, hurts like nothing else. It's a pain that digs deep into your soul and suffocates your heart. I thought back through our time together. Where did I go wrong? What did I do to lose her respect? When did it all change? I could feel myself transforming. I was no longer the same person. The fun, easygoing guy everyone knew. A darker side of me was emerging. A side I didn't even know existed and one I didn't think I'd like very much. Never in my life had I done something like I had with Brandon. But even more disturbing than the act itself was my lack of remorse. It felt as though good and evil were at war for my humanity. I still loved Jennifer. After all the time we spent together, the dreams, the experiences, and the children we brought into this world. I couldn't just turn off the love like a light switch. But at the same time, resentment was building inside me, pushing that love aside. But to what end? What would fill the void? Loneliness. When I stepped out of the shower, I don't know why, but I didn't feel comfortable letting Jennifer see me naked. I cracked the bathroom door to let out some steam, then toweled off and dressed before walking back into the bedroom. Jennifer, though drained of tears, was still lying in bed, sobbing. If I had looked at the face of a stranger in that much pain, I might have been able to muster more compassion. But for Jennifer at that moment I couldn't. She said through sniffles, "Help me, Marcus. I can't even imagine how much you're hurting from what I've done. Please help me find the words to say I'm sorry. Tell me what I can do to save our marriage. I don't want a divorce. I want you. I love you, Marcus. Please believe me." "Jennifer, right now I don't know what to believe," I replied, feeling the weight of it all. Just then, I heard the front door open, followed by the sound of several young female voices downstairs. At that moment, I still had my own issues to handle, but I thought maybe this could serve as a distraction. If nothing else, it might take my mind off the problems in my marriage, if only for a while. As soon as I reached the bottom step and was visible, Madison greeted me enthusiastically, throwing her arms around my neck. "Hi, Daddy," she said brightly. Sophia followed with a kiss on my cheek. "Do you know Beth?" she asked as her friend extended her hand. "Hi, Beth," I said, offering a gentle handshake. "Girls, I'm glad you're here." I started, trying to keep my composure. "We've got a bit of a problem." The girls looked at me with curiosity as I continued. "The other night, I got a call from a young man at 2 a.m. asking for you, Sophia." "Me?" Sophia's voice was full of genuine surprise. "Yes, honey," I said. "And he wasn't very nice. He called again the next night, but I managed to record the conversation that time. I have a tape in my office. Let me grab it. I want to see if you can recognize his voice." The girls sat down in the living room while I went to get the tape. When I returned, I already had it queued up to the recording. I pressed play and set the recorder on the coffee table so the girls could hear it clearly. "Who is this?" Sophia asked, looking concerned. "I don't know," Beth said, shaking her head. "I know who it is," Madison said with a sneer. "That's Tyler Morrison. He's a senior and the biggest jerk in our school." "Wait, he's a senior and he's calling Sophia? I thought he'd be calling you," I said to Madison. "He's probably calling Sophia to get back at me," Madison explained. "He's been trying to get me to go out with him all year, but I always told him no. Last week, he tried to pull my skirt up, and I slapped him. He's probably mad at me and trying to take it out on Sophia." Madison looked at her younger sister with sympathy. "I'm sorry. I had no idea he'd do something like this." Sophia's face showed that she was a little frightened. I reassured her, "Don't worry, honey. Daddy's going to take care of everything." I turned to Madison, asking, "Do you know where he lives?" "He lives in the subdivision behind the Kroger somewhere, but I'm not sure exactly where," she replied. "That's okay," I said. "As long as I have some idea. There can't be too many Morrisons living back there. If there's more than one, I'll just knock on doors until I find the right one." I grabbed the tape recorder and started heading toward my office. "Girls, what are your plans for tonight?" I asked. "Nothing special, Dad," Madison replied with Sophia nodding in agreement. "All right," I said. "I'm going to make a couple of CDs of this tape. Madison, I'll need to borrow your portable player tonight. We're also having a family meeting later, so I want to make sure you're all here by 9 o'clock. Do you know where Ethan is?" "Yeah, he's at Tommy's house, Dad. But he'll be back long before then," Madison answered. "Okay, good," I said. I still didn't know where all this was going to lead. But one thing was certain. The relationship between Jennifer and me was going to be strained. I wasn't sure how or when I'd tell the kids, but it seemed like they were going to find out eventually, so it might as well be sooner than later. But first, I had something else to take care of. I was already sitting at my computer making a couple of CDs with the calls when Madison came in with her portable player. It was just a bit bigger than a regular CD and had its own speaker so you could listen to it without headphones. "Dad," she said softly, "Mom's in your bedroom crying. I heard her when I went up to get this. What's going on? Are you guys fighting?" I sighed, unsure of how to explain. "Yes, baby, we are. We have some very serious issues to work through, but right now, Mommy needs some time alone. I'm going to take care of the situation with Tyler Morrison. Okay?" But please don't say anything to your brother or sisters just yet. I looked into Madison's face, and I could already see the tears welling up in her eyes. God, this was going to be hard, I thought as I stood up and wrapped my arms around her. Honey, I said, sometimes bad things happen, and there's not much you can do except move forward. Don't worry, I'll do all the explaining tonight. Okay, Dad, she said, trying to be brave. She left and went back upstairs to her room, knowing something was wrong, but not fully understanding the depth of it. At least not yet. I sat back down at my computer and looked for Tyler Morrison's address in the area where Madison said he lived. There was only one in the subdivision, so I thought I'd head in that direction. I also checked the school website to look into their bullying policy and found out they had a zero-tolerance policy. Caught once and you're out. Then I checked our town ordinances, which was good news, too. The local courts had a strict stance against bullying, and that gave me some peace of mind. Feeling armed with the right information, I grabbed one of the CDs and Madison's portable player, heading toward Morrison's house. I realized I had to calm myself down. I guess I was feeling overwhelmed by everything happening in such a short span of time. What I really wanted to do was give this kid the same treatment I gave Brandon. But of course that was impossible. So I settled for scaring him and his parents to death. Yes. A tall man who outweighed me by about 20 pounds answered the door. Does Tyler Morrison live here? I asked. Yes. Can I help you? I'm his father, he replied. Without wasting time, I said, this is your son calling for my 14-year-old daughter at 2 a.m. I hit play on the tape recorder. The father looked shocked as he listened. His wife came up behind him, asking what was going on. He turned to her and said, seems we have a problem. Honey, won't you come in? He invited, opening the door wider. They offered me a seat on the sofa, immediately apologizing for their son's behavior. Is he here? I asked. I'd like to talk to him. He's out with a friend, but I'll call him, the father replied. I had expected them to be defensive or to make excuses. But to my surprise, they were neither. When Tyler answered his phone, his dad told him to get home in 15 minutes or not to come home at all. I turned down the wife's offer of coffee. At that point, caffeine was the last thing I needed. As soon as Tyler walked in, I stood up and approached him, holding out my hand with a smile. Before his parents could say anything, he looked completely confused. He had no idea who I was. I took his hand with an extremely firm grip. Hello, Tyler, I said, squeezing his hand tightly. I'm Mr. Brennan, Madison and Sophia's father. His eyes grew wide and his mouth fell open. His hand tried to pull away, but I didn't let go. I see you're surprised to see me, I said, still gripping his hand firmly. Let me tell you what's going to happen. Your parents and I are going to listen to a recording of you calling my house at 2 a.m., making threats and saying things no one should say to a young girl. I finally released his hand and played the recording for everyone. Tyler's face went pale as his own voice filled the room. When it finished, his father stood up, his face red with anger. Tyler, what the hell is wrong with you? Dad, Don't dad me. Mr. Brennan, I am so sorry. This is unacceptable. I held up my hand. Mr. Morrison, here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow, Tyler is going to gather as many of his friends as he can, and he's going to find Madison and Sophia at school. He's going to apologize sincerely and publicly. If I get home tomorrow night and they tell me it didn't happen, I'll be showing this recording to the principal and the police chief. I turned to Tyler. You'll be arrested for harassment, disturbing the peace, and threatening a minor. I'll take time off work to go to court as many times as necessary, and I'll make sure you're convicted. You'll be expelled from school, and I'm going to make sure all your friends know about it so they can drive by and wave. I could see the tears starting to form in Tyler's eyes. He wasn't as dumb as I thought. He understood what was at stake. But here's what's going to happen, Tyler, I said, my tone firm. Tomorrow, you're going to get as many of your friends together as you can, and you're going to find Madison and Sophia. You're going to apologize sincerely. If I get home tomorrow night and they tell me it didn't happen, I'll be showing this tape to the principal and the police chief. You'll be arrested for bullying, disturbing the peace, and malicious conduct. I'll take time off from work to go to court as many times as I need to, and I'll make sure you're convicted." He lowered his head and nodded. But that wasn't enough for his father, who had been silent up until that point. "Answer the man," his father shouted. "Yes, sir, Mr. Brennan. I'll apologize tomorrow. I promise," Tyler said, his voice shaky. "And what about Mr. Brennan?" his dad added. "You owe him an apology for waking him up in the middle of the night and making him go through all this." "I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan," Tyler said quickly. "I promise it won't happen again." "Not only that," his dad said, "but I'm taking your cell phone away and you're grounded for a month. No going out, no dates, no friends over." As I left, both Mr. and Mrs. Morrison apologized again. I wasn't sure if I could really have Tyler arrested or if the tape would be accepted in court, but I was confident that neither Tyler nor his parents would test me. I doubted I'd be hearing from Tyler again. Now, if only I could fix my marriage problems that easily, I thought on my way home. When I walked into the house, the kids were sitting in front of the TV watching the latest animated movie. I was hoping Jennifer would be in the kitchen fixing dinner by then. But unsurprisingly, the kitchen was dark. I greeted the kids and announced, "Pizza's on the way." As I dialed for delivery, I went upstairs to check on Jennifer. I paused at the bedroom door for a moment, debating whether I should knock before entering. But then I thought, this is my house. And with that, I opened the door and stepped inside. The only light came from the hallway, casting a faint glow into the room. "Are you awake?" I asked. "Yes," she mumbled weakly. "What time is it?" "It's 7:30, I answered. "I ordered pizza. It should be here in about half an hour. You should clean up and join us for dinner. We're going to have a family meeting afterward." "We'll tell the kids?" Jennifer interrupted, her voice soft and desperate. "We don't have to say anything to the kids yet, do we? Please, let's just wait. Let's not tell them yet." "Jennifer, I'm not sure we can work this out," I said, my voice thick with frustration. "I've never been this hurt or disappointed in my life." I heard her sniffle quietly. "Whether we get through this or not, I don't know. But right now, I need time to think, and I can't do that here. I'm moving out tomorrow after work. Nothing permanent. Not yet. I'll probably check into the hotel on Sawmill that has weekly rates." She stood up and headed for the bathroom, then paused. "Marcus, please don't divorce me. I'll figure out a way to make it up to you. I promise." I didn't respond. I simply turned and left the room. Downstairs, I began setting the table. Jennifer and I both tried to act normal, but I could tell the kids weren't buying it. They weren't stupid. There was a heavy silence while we ate. No one spoke much, and everyone remained seated when we were finished. I took a deep breath and began. "Okay, guys, I know you're already aware that something's wrong. Your mother and I are having some issues in our marriage. Dad, are you and Mom getting a divorce?" Ethan asked, interrupting. I raised my hand to stop him. "Let me finish and then I'll answer all your questions. This situation will affect you, but I want you to understand that the problems your mother and I are having have nothing to do with anything any of you did. This is between your mother and me. We both love you very much. Do you all understand?" Everyone nodded, but the sadness on their faces was palpable. "Good," I continued. "Also, this doesn't mean your mom and I don't still care about each other. Love isn't the only thing that keeps a marriage together. Relationships are complicated and sometimes things happen that strain them. That's what's going on right now." Ethan, his face full of concern, asked again, "Are you guys going to get a divorce?" "No, honey, we're not going to get a divorce," I said, holding up my hand to stop Jennifer from speaking. "There will be no more lies in this family," I said, giving Jennifer a stern look. "I just don't know yet. Right now, the chances are 50-50. I could see Jennifer's eyes widen, a gasp escaping her. She hadn't expected me to give such a grim assessment. "I'm going to stay in a motel for a while, so your mom and I can figure things out. This doesn't mean I'm abandoning you guys. I'm just down the street and you can call me anytime. I'll be here for you." Grace, our youngest, burst into tears and hugged me tightly. I hugged her back and kissed her on the cheek. I looked around at the table. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, including Jennifer's and mine. My heart pounded, realizing how fragile the family we had built was, how easily it could fall apart. I glanced at Jennifer, but she remained silent, her eyes filled with regret. That's all I wanted to tell you. Are there any other questions? But you and Mom have always seemed so happy, Sophia asked. You never even fight. What happened? Jennifer's worried gaze met mine, but I refused to tell the kids everything. They didn't need to know about Jennifer's infidelity. Not yet, at least. Like I said, I began. Even when two people love each other, things happen. That's all I can say right now. I'm not moving out until tomorrow, I added, trying to lighten the mood. So why don't you all pick out a movie? Mom will make some popcorn and we can all watch something together. The kids perked up and scampered off to choose a movie. I told Jennifer I'd clear the table and she could start on the popcorn. Marcus, I'm so sorry, honey. I never wanted to hurt you, Jennifer said, her voice trembling. I looked at her, my voice firm. And yet you did. I finished cleaning up, feeling the weight of her apology, but it didn't make it easier to bear. The rest of the evening was spent watching a thriller, a suspenseful movie that kept everyone's attention off the tension in the room. We all sat on the couch snacking, but I could feel the cracks forming in our once happy family. When it came time for the kids to go to bed, they all gave me extra hugs and kisses. Jennifer wanted to talk more, but I wasn't ready to hear more apologies. I had heard enough. I needed time to process my emotions, to make sense of the hurt. So, I simply told her that I knew she was sorry, but it wasn't enough. I needed space, time to figure out where we were headed or if we were even headed anywhere at all. I couldn't believe it when she asked me to come upstairs. After everything, after all the apologies, all the talking, she still didn't understand. She had no idea what kind of pain I was going through. I almost laughed in her face, but I held it together and calmly told her I'd be sleeping on the couch tonight. As I lay there trying to get some rest, my mind kept racing through everything that had happened over the past few days. Earlier, I had sat on the floor of our bedroom, feeling like there was no hope left. But now, I started to feel guilty for even considering giving up. Was my family really so unimportant to me that I'd just walk away without trying to figure things out? I couldn't be sure, but I wasn't ready to just let go. Eventually, I managed to fall asleep. The next day, work was a welcome distraction. It kept my mind occupied until my secretary told me Jennifer was on the phone. I reluctantly picked up. Hello, Jennifer. What's up? There was a pause before she spoke. Marcus, did you hear about Brandon? You mean that he's been involved with my wife? I said, trying to keep the sarcasm in check. Yeah, I've heard. She hesitated, the silence stretching on longer than usual before she continued. No, Marcus, that's not what I mean. He's in the hospital. Hospital? I replied, surprised. For what? Someone beat him up with a baseball bat. He's in pretty bad shape. Well, what do you know? I guess it couldn't have happened to a more deserving guy, I said, my voice laced with bitterness. How did you find out? It's in today's paper, she replied. If you think I'm going to feel sorry for him, I trailed off. It happened in the motel, Marcus, when he was waiting for me. I froze for a moment. Wait, are you asking if I did it? I said, keeping my voice steady. I was playing golf. Do you really think you're the only one he's been seeing? She was quiet for a long moment, clearly processing everything I'd said. I never thought about that, she whispered. Not the only one, huh? I said, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. Well, I'm sure I'm not the only one who won't be sorry he got beat up. She didn't answer. What hospital is he in? I asked. Memorial, she said quietly. Well, I guess I'll have to send him flowers, I replied, my words dripping with sarcasm. The kind with thorns still attached. Is that all, Jennifer? I've got a lot of work to do. That's all, she said, sounding uncertain. Just wanted to tell you about it. I sighed, relieved that the conversation was over. One more thing, I said, holding the phone a little tighter. If you're thinking of visiting him in the hospital or even sending him a get-well-soon card, consider this marriage over. Do you understand? There was a long silence on the other end before she replied softly, Yes, Marcus, I understand. I could hear the faint sound of her crying as we hung up. For the rest of the day, I couldn't wipe the bitter smile off my face. I knew I had to keep my distance from Brandon. No sense in looking for trouble, but part of me really wanted to look him in the eye and tell him exactly how I felt. The rest of the week passed without incident. No police showed up and I started to feel paranoid. Why hadn't they called? I was ready to answer any questions they had, confident I could avoid suspicion. But now, the lack of questions was starting to make me uneasy. Did they know something I hadn't figured out? Were they building a case against me? Friday evening, I decided to stop by Plato's, a local bar down the street. I spotted a familiar face sitting at the bar. Hey Ryan, long time no see, I said, pulling up a stool next to him. Both Jennifer and I had known Ryan and his wife Amanda for years. They were part of the circle of friends we spent time with, mostly at parties and social gatherings. You look like you're ready for another, I said, motioning to the bartender. Oh yeah, thanks, Ryan replied. What's going on? You seem a little down. I ordered a drink for him and a light beer for myself before answering. Did you hear about Brandon? Yeah, Ryan said, his tone flat. I heard he got beat up, but I didn't know much more. I didn't realize you were such good friends. We're not, he replied, taking a swig of his drink. But I'm not exactly bummed that he got hurt. I wouldn't mind having a few words with him myself. His words caught me off guard. Really? I said, surprised by the intensity in his voice. I hadn't thought of Brandon as a bad guy, but then again, I didn't know everything about him. What happened? Well, Ryan said, leaning in a little closer. I heard he was beat up in a motel room, and I think it was over some affair. My ears perked up. What do you mean over an affair? I asked. I don't think he was waiting for Amanda there, Ryan continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. But I think he was involved with someone else. I got suspicious when Amanda acted really nervous after I heard about it. So, I checked her computer. He paused, looking at me to gauge my reaction before continuing. I went in her Yahoo account, and there were a bunch of messages. I knew she had 2 email addresses, her personal one for most things and the one she used for her online cooking projects. But then I stumbled upon a third one I had no idea existed. I've been trying to get into it for days, but the password wouldn't budge. No matter what I tried, I kept coming up empty, and that in itself made me suspicious. Normally, she only had 3 passwords by now. I was just as curious to know if Brandon was involved with Amanda as Ryan was. If he was, there could be more than just those 2 involved, and I definitely wouldn't be the only suspect anymore. Plus, I could rub it in Jennifer's face. Not that it would solve anything, but I could certainly see why Ryan would be suspicious. Have you asked her about it? I asked. No, I didn't want to confront her without proof. What if it's something innocent? I don't want to cause a huge fight over nothing. Well, you have to find out for sure, I said. Why not just sit her down and ask her about it? Show her the email address and ask her what she's using it for. If everything's fine, she should have no problem showing you. If she's hiding something, you'll know right away. If she refuses, take the computer to one of those tech guys and have them help you crack it. Either way, you need to know. You're right, he said. I can't keep going like this, wondering if Amanda is seeing someone else. I'm going home right now to ask her. Well, after the kids are in bed anyway. With that, he slammed back his drink, clapped me on the back, and rushed out, looking like a man on a mission. I told him to call me if he needed to talk, and he promised he would. I figured if Amanda was having an affair, Ryan would call me for sure. He'd need a friend. If I didn't hear from him, it might mean Amanda's 3rd email address had nothing to do with Brandon after all. The next day, Saturday, I picked up the kids and spent the day with them. Before we even made it out of the driveway, Ethan started talking about how sad his mom was. Sophia chimed in asking why I was mad at Mom and when I was coming back. They asked if we would ever be a happy family again. They were hitting me with everything they had, and it stung. If only it were that simple. I wasn't living some carefree bachelor life that I couldn't tear myself away from. No, I was lonely. Very lonely. I'd have given almost anything to have my old life back. But I just couldn't bring myself to go back to it. Not yet. The following Monday, I still hadn't heard from Ryan. By Tuesday, I figured whatever Amanda was hiding in that third email address had nothing to do with Brandon. I felt a deep sense of shame when I realized that part of me had actually been hoping she was having an affair. How could I have wished that on a friend just to have something to hold over my wife? By Thursday afternoon, I had almost forgotten about it. Then Ryan called. "Hi, Marcus. How are things going?" I asked. "Not good," he said. "Remember I told you I thought Amanda was seeing Brandon? Yeah, I was right. She was." His voice cracked and I could hear the pain. I hung my head in shame, feeling like a horrible person for ever having hope for such a thing. I couldn't speak for a moment. "Marcus, are you there?" he asked. "Yeah, Ryan, I'm here. I'm just so sorry to hear that." "I really am," I said sincerely. "Thanks," he replied. "What a mess. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. Probably get a divorce. Amanda spent the night in the ER last night." "What? Ryan, did you?" "No, it wasn't me. It was Megan, Brandon's wife. She found out about the affair and came over while I was at work. She beat the crap out of Amanda right in front of our daughter." "Wait," I said, trying to process it all. "Did you tell Megan about the affair?" "No," Ryan said. "Megan found out on her own. I never confronted Amanda about that third email address, but now I know what it was for." "Okay," I said. "This is all getting confusing. Maybe you should start at the beginning." "Well, actually, I was hoping you could meet me for a drink at Plato's after work," he said. "I could use some company." I didn't have anything else planned, so I agreed. I hadn't told him anything about my own situation with Jennifer yet, but I felt like it was a good time to talk. By the time I arrived, Ryan was already on his second rum and coke. I could tell he was hurting just like I had been and still was going through my own struggles. "First, I want to say how sorry I am about Amanda," I said, sitting down beside him. "How are you doing?" He turned toward me and I saw the tears in his eyes. "To tell you the truth, Marcus," he said, his voice breaking, "I don't know. I still can't believe it." Ryan shook his head. "We've been married for over 12 years. I trusted her." He took another drink. "So tell me," I started. "You said you didn't confront Amanda after all. How'd you find out? And what's this about Megan beating her up?" Ryan paused, finishing his drink before signaling the bartender for another. "Well, by the time I got home last Friday night, I didn't want to know. I just couldn't bear the thought of Amanda having an affair. So I tried to push it out of my mind. But, of course, Megan knew. She had seen the police report about Brandon at the motel and had been asking him about it. But he just stonewalled her. In the meantime, she was going through his computer at home. But like me, she couldn't get past his passwords, so she found someone who could. They got into Brandon's secret email accounts, and it was all there. You know, Cheryl Simmons, Peter's wife. I nodded, having already figured that out. Yeah, he was seeing her too. And a couple of other women I never even heard of. Ryan took another sip, and I could tell he was stewing. Megan and Amanda were pretty close over the years, so when Megan saw Amanda's email, she lost it. She went to Amanda's house and really gave her a piece of her mind. Right in front of Audrey. Audrey called me crying, saying someone had beaten up her mom. I jumped in the car and raced home. By the time I got there, Amanda was already swollen and bruised. I took her to the ER. At first, she wouldn't say what happened, but when I asked if it had anything to do with Brandon, she just broke down and confessed everything. Ryan stopped for a second, wiping his eyes, then went on. Later, Megan called to check on Amanda. She was worried she'd hurt her more than she intended. That's when she told me how she found out. She had suspected for a while and was just about to hire a private investigator when everything broke. So Brandon was emailing all these women and didn't even delete the evidence? I asked. Apparently not, Ryan said. I don't think there were more women. At least Megan didn't mention any others. But it was 4 at least. My mind raced. No evidence of Jennifer on Brandon's computer. Could I have been wrong? Of course not. I had that conversation on tape. Still, something nagged at me. Was Megan aware of Jennifer? I couldn't risk her showing up at our door, and I certainly didn't want her going after Jennifer in front of the kids, no matter what had happened. I'm going to hit the washroom, I said. I needed a moment alone. Once I was in there, I called Jennifer. Hello, Sophia answered. Hi, honey. It's Dad. Is your mom home? I need to speak to her. Sure, Dad. I'll get her, Sophia said, clearly hoping I was coming home. Hello. Jennifer's voice sounded upbeat. Have you seen Megan Harper? I asked. Megan? No. Why? I told you Brandon was probably seeing more women than just you, I said. There are at least 4 others, and it looks like Megan's been confronting them. She's been going around kicking the crap out of them. That's a lie, Jennifer said, her voice rising in indignation. Brandon wouldn't do that. Oh no, I snapped. Well, before you open the door to Megan, you might want to check with Amanda Grant. Ryan had to take her to the ER last night. I'm having a drink with him right now and he's talking about divorcing her. She was one of the 4. I could hear Jennifer catch her breath. Oh my God, she said softly. Marcus, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Please come back home. The kids miss you. I miss you. I can't talk right now, I said, trying to keep it together. I just wanted to warn you about Megan. I got to get back to Ryan. He's hurting. I'll be there for him. I just wonder how many more families Brandon is going to ruin with his lies. I disconnected, feeling empty. There should have been satisfaction in warning her and telling her I was right. But there wasn't. Families were being torn apart, and mine might be one of them. On my way back to the bar, I reflected on the conversation. It was strange hearing Ryan talk about his pain, how lost he felt. I felt like he was voicing my own emotions. Was this the way all men felt after finding out their wives had cheated? And what about women whose husbands cheated? Did they feel the same? By the time I sat down next to Ryan again, he had barely touched his second rum and coke. I could tell he was a mess. He wasn't even aware that I'd come back. Did Amanda say how it all started? I asked, my voice quieter. Why would she risk everything? You guys always seemed so happy. Ryan didn't know it, but I was asking as much for myself as for him. To tell you the truth, Marcus, she wasn't making a lot of sense last night after everything. She'd been beaten up, then treated in the ER. By the time we got home, she was hysterical, just blubbering. It was half confession, half apology. She couldn't stop. Finally, she fell asleep around 4 a.m. from sheer exhaustion. I'm sorry, man, I said quietly. Yeah, thanks, Ryan replied. I didn't get any sleep. I don't know what to do. I got Audrey to think about what's best for her. I wanted to say I know exactly how you feel, but I didn't. It was so strange, though, hearing Ryan express exactly what I was going through. Were all men like this after finding out their wives were cheating? And what about women whose husbands cheated? We sat there for another hour. By the time Ryan was done, he was pretty much drunk. But at least he wasn't alone. I had the bartender call him a cab and gave the driver his address before heading back to my motel room. All this drama wasn't helping me figure things out at all. I still had no idea what I was going to do, and I was no closer to a solution than when I packed my bags. I also kept wondering how Jennifer had managed to avoid being identified as one of Brandon's lovers when the others had been caught. Then it hit me. We only had one computer in the house and everyone used it. The kids used it for homework. I used it for various things and Jennifer used it occasionally to email her sister. There was no way she would risk emailing Brandon. I had caught her once over the phone, but they never communicated by email, only by phone. Jennifer sure dodged a bullet there, I thought, without even knowing it. As far as I knew, only 3 people knew about their affair. Now, I was starting to wonder if Brandon would stay quiet or if he'd start bragging once everyone knew about the others. When I picked up the kids Saturday morning, Jennifer was even quieter than before. I was sure she was not only feeling remorseful, but also like a fool. I think she had believed she and Brandon shared something special because of their history, but now she knew she was just one of several women he was seeing. I know it's not nice to admit, but a part of me was almost enjoying it. As the week passed, I was getting anxious for more information. I hadn't heard anything, and it was driving me crazy. I kept wishing Ryan would call since he seemed to know what was going on, but I hadn't talked to him since last Friday, and I didn't want to seem too nosy by calling him. Then I thought of Megan. Why not? I could call her and offer my sympathy for what had happened to Brandon. It seemed like a good idea, except her phone just rang and rang. I left a message, but wasn't really expecting her to call back. A little after 9 o'clock that night, my cell rang. Hello? I answered before checking the display. Hi Marcus, it's Megan Harper. Oh Megan, you didn't have to call me back. I just called to say I was sorry to hear about what happened to Brandon. She snapped. Are you the one who worked him over? Her response caught me off guard and I started stammering. Oh no, I just meant. I'm sorry, Marcus. I didn't mean to snap at you, she said, her tone softening. It's been a rough few weeks. She paused, then asked, Listen, I know it's late, but could you and Jennifer stand a little company tonight? I really need to talk to someone. I wasn't sure calling Megan was such a good idea anymore, but I had to think fast. Megan, I'm still at work and I think Jennifer was planning on going to bed early tonight. Why don't I meet you somewhere for a drink? It's on me. Are you sure that would be okay with Jennifer? She asked. The last thing I want to do is cause more problems. Don't worry about it, I assured her. There's no problem with us having a couple of drinks together. It must be nice to have that kind of trust in a relationship. I almost choked on my words, but kept it together. I'll meet you at the Queen's Crown. It's a quiet little bar in your neighborhood. When I walked in, I spotted Megan right away. She was sitting in the back corner looking worn out, dark circles under her eyes, her hair showing signs of neglect, and her face was red and puffy as though she'd been crying. Hi, Marcus, she greeted me, forcing a smile. Please have a seat. She waved for the waitress and I ordered a light beer before focusing on Megan. So, how much do you know? She asked. I suppose you heard about me going after Amanda Grant last week. I figured it was best not to lie, so I admitted I talked to Ryan. That son of a... My husband has been cheating on me, she blurted out. Not just with one woman, but several. Amanda was one of them. I just saw red. I went over to her house and before I knew it, I was on top of her. I don't even know how I didn't end up in jail. She took a sip of her wine and continued, her hands still shaking. I saw an attorney today and filed for divorce. That's where I was when you called. I felt sorry for her, genuinely. I'm really sorry, I said, meaning every word. Ryan had told me about Amanda, Cheryl Simmons, and 2 other women. Anyone I know? I asked, fishing for details. No, I don't think you know them, Megan replied. They were just 2 women from Brandon's work. One is divorced, but the other is still married, at least for now. I'm sure that marriage will be another one on the rocks. Thanks to my beloved husband. She chuckled bitterly. Hearing her admit all of this felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I was more certain now than ever that Megan had no idea about Jennifer. Now I just had to trust Brandon to keep his mouth shut. Just then, Megan said something that made me feel a bit more at ease. Don't tell anyone I said this, but I think Peter Simmons is the one who worked Brandon over. Peter. Why? What makes you think he did it? I asked, genuinely surprised. I don't know. I don't have proof. He just seems like the kind of guy who would do something like that. A no-nonsense type. The kind of guy you don't want to cross. She didn't realize it, but her words stung a little. I wanted to ask, what about me? I'm a no-nonsense guy, too. But of course, I couldn't say that. So, speaking of Brandon, when does he come home? I changed the subject, not wanting to linger on the uncomfortable moment. He doesn't, she said flatly, as if she meant it. He was released from the hospital 2 days ago, but I told him he wasn't welcome back in the house. He's been living with his parents until the divorce is final. And even then, he'll be lucky to get anything from me. Wow, I said. That's pretty harsh. Not harsh enough, she replied, her voice cold. After everything he's put me through, he deserves worse. We talked for a while longer. I could tell she was hurting, but she was also angry, really angry. I recognized that feeling all too well. So what's Brandon's condition? I asked. Is he going to be okay? Physically? The doctors say he'll recover, but it's going to take time. He had some broken bones, internal injuries. They're not sure about long-term damage yet. She paused. But honestly, I don't care. He brought this on himself. I nodded, understanding her anger even if I couldn't fully relate to her situation. How are you holding up? I asked. I'm managing, she said. Some days are harder than others, but I've got a good support system. Friends, family. They've been amazing. She looked at me with tired eyes. What about you and Jennifer? How are things? I hesitated. I hadn't planned on telling her anything, but something about her openness made me want to be honest. We're going through a rough patch, I said carefully. I moved out temporarily. We're trying to figure things out. I'm sorry to hear that, she said sincerely. Is it anything you want to talk about? Not really, I said, but I appreciate you asking. We continued talking for another hour or so. The conversation drifted to lighter topics, her job, my work at the plant, the kids. It was nice to have a normal conversation with someone who understood pain without me having to explain everything. I decided to change the subject. So, what are you going to do when you're free? What's your plan? I'm thinking about moving back to Grand Rapids, she replied, finally smiling genuinely for the first time that evening. That's where I'm from. My dad passed away a couple of years ago, but my mom's still around. I have a brother there, too, and I've got some friends in the area. Her smile was a relief, and I felt like we were finally connecting on a deeper level. For as long as I'd known Megan, we hadn't really talked much. But that night, we made up for lost time. She seemed happy to take her mind off things for a while. By the time we finished, it was getting late. Oh my goodness, she said, checking her watch. It's already 1 a.m. You better call Jennifer. She's probably worried about you. Oh God, Marcus. I didn't mean to keep you out this late. I hope Jennifer won't be mad, she added, genuinely concerned. Don't worry. I'm sure Jennifer's fast asleep, I reassured her. Whatever you do, though, don't call her to apologize. I'm pretty sure she won't even notice what time I get in. Okay. I won't say anything, Megan said with another smile. Thank you so much. I really needed someone to talk to tonight. She gave me a quick peck on the cheek before we parted ways. I didn't tell her, but I enjoyed it as much as she did. Being alone in that motel room every night was getting to me, and a little company was a welcome distraction. A couple of nights later, I decided to try Plato's, a bar near my usual dinner spot at Denny's. I'd never been the type to pick up women at a bar, but for some reason, I found myself hoping that someone would pick me up. Of course, that never happened. Most nights I'd sit on my favorite stool with a light beer in hand, watching other couples come in and enjoy each other's company. The time wasn't completely wasted, though. I learned something important. No matter how lonely you are, being lonely in a crowd of people is worse. Saturday came and I could tell the kids were growing weary of the situation. They wanted me to move back into the house. After dropping them off, I returned to my motel room to think things over. I tried to organize my thoughts, but all I could do was feel sorry for myself. Why was I doing this? I had a loving wife and 4 wonderful kids. Sure, my wife had cheated on me. She wasn't the person I thought she was, but still, I was hurting from the betrayal of our vows. The pain would probably fade with time, but then there was the issue of trust. How could I ever trust her again? Would I ever be able to make love to her without thinking of Brandon? Could I ever see her as my wife again without the shadow of her infidelity hanging over me? I was torn. One part of me wanted to go home so badly I could taste it, but another part kept reminding me of why it wasn't so simple. Before I could even think about reconciling with my wife, I first had to reconcile with myself. As I sat in the dark watching the neon vacancy sign outside my window, I felt tears running down my face. One of these days, I thought, I'm gonna run out of these. A couple of days later, the motel owner told me my wife was on the phone. I missed her. It showed in my voice when I answered. Hi, Jennifer, I said, trying to sound upbeat. How are you, Marcus? She asked. I'm doing about as well as I can without my husband at my side, Jennifer said. I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have said that. I know this is all my fault. I just miss you so much. I know, Jennifer. I miss you too, I replied, my voice heavy with emotion. But that doesn't mean I'm not still hurting. I don't know that I'll ever get over it. I just don't know. She was quiet for a moment and then spoke again. Anyway, was there anything specific you wanted to talk about? Or is this just a social call? Well, there are a couple of things, she said. First, I want to apologize for my outburst the other night when you told me about Brandon and those other women. It just came as such a shock after you called. I thought about it and then I got scared. If he had been with that many women, maybe I should get tested. So, I made an appointment with a doctor and he just called. I'm free and clear. Nothing. I wanted to tell you as soon as I found out. I didn't know if you had been tested, but I thought I should let you know in case you were worried. I sat there stunned. With everything going on, I hadn't even thought about the possibility of catching something. But I was glad Jennifer had the presence of mind to think about it. That was good thinking and I made sure to tell her so. To tell you the truth, I never gave it a thought. I said, I'm glad you told me. Thanks. I probably would have woken up in a panic one night wondering. Well, you would have thought about it sooner or later, she said. At least this is one thing we don't have to worry about. She paused before continuing. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is that your parents invited us to dinner next Saturday. Do you think we can go? All of us? They haven't seen the kids in weeks. And well, I thought maybe we could try to be a family again, even if it's only for a day. I thought about it for a few moments. It would be nice to see my parents again. I hadn't seen them in a couple of months. But then I realized it probably wasn't the right time. I don't think that would be a good idea right now, Jennifer, I said, my tone firm. We're not a happy family at the moment, and I'm not going to lie to my folks and pretend everything's okay. She sounded disappointed. What should I tell them? We've never turned them down before. What excuse can I give your mother? I don't know, I said, my irritation growing. Tell her you didn't realize I already had plans. I am sorry, Jennifer. I'd like to go see them, too, but I just don't think it's a good idea right now. What if one of the kids says something about me living away from home? Then we'd have to tell them everything. I'm just not ready to do that yet. I know, Marcus. You're right, she said with a resigned sigh. I'll call your mom a little later. We talked for a few more minutes, but the conversation felt like it was already winding down. Before she hung up, she told me once again how much she loved me. I wish she would stop saying that for a while. It just didn't make sense to me. I could never do what she did. Never. Later, as I sat at my desk watching the clock tick away the minutes, I felt a weight pressing on me. I hated to see the workday end. At least when I was at work, there was enough to occupy my mind and keep me distracted from my personal problems. But once I left the office, all my troubles came rushing back. The call from Jennifer, the rejection of my parents' dinner invitation, it all brought my issues right back to the forefront. I knew I would be thinking about nothing else until I fell asleep, if I could sleep at all. I decided to grab a drink at Plato's on the way home. Home? I thought. Is that how I view this motel room now, as my home? When I walked into Plato's, I almost turned around and walked out again. Ryan was sitting at the bar, and I wasn't sure I was in the mood to talk to him. I was there to forget my troubles, and talking to him would probably do the opposite. But I couldn't deny it. I wasn't going to forget anything with just 1 or 2 drinks. So I walked over and took a seat next to him. Hi, Ryan. How are things going? I asked. He looked over at me, his expression stern. How are things going? He replied, his voice bitter. I wish I knew. He added, taking a swig of his drink. I guess I'm going to try and forgive her, he continued. She keeps saying how sorry she is and that it'll never happen again. He downed the rest of his drink and ordered another. Marcus, I hope you never have to go through anything like this. I've always considered myself a pretty well put together kind of guy. I'm fairly intelligent, hardworking, loving, honest, and I hope trustworthy. But nothing has ever hit me like this has. He took a sip from his new drink and stared into the glass. I'll tell you this, he said, his voice darkening. Whoever beat the hell out of Brandon did him a favor. Because if it had been me, I'd have, well, I don't even want to say what I'd have done. He looked at me with a pained expression. Sometimes that's how I feel about Amanda, too. I just want to strangle her. But then other times I want to hold her and never let her go. I looked at Ryan, trying to understand where he was coming from. It doesn't make any sense, does it, Marcus? He asked, his voice filled with frustration. Actually, Ryan, it does, I said. I knew exactly how he felt. As I sat there listening to Ryan talk about trying to forgive his wife, I realized he had made a pretty good case for staying together. He talked about his daughter Audrey and how he feared a divorce would affect her. He mentioned marriage counseling, and I thought that might be something Jennifer and I should consider too. By the time we both left the bar that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had a lot to think about. I felt better than I had in a while after hearing Ryan talk. He made a lot of sense to me, and I was about 80% sure I was going to go back home and give my marriage another chance. The next morning, I heard my secretary's voice across the intercom telling me my mother was on the phone. Great, I thought. She's going to ask me what's more important than coming to dinner on Saturday. But I told myself maybe it was time to patch things up anyway. Hello, Mom. I greeted her. How are you and Dad? We're fine, honey, she answered. I was disappointed to find out you won't be coming for dinner on Saturday. I was about to tell her we'd be able to make it after all when she interrupted me. What's going on, Marcus? Are you cheating on Jennifer? I was so shocked by the question that I could feel my mouth drop open. Mom, what the hell gave you that idea? I was flabbergasted when she told me that we couldn't make it for dinner. I pressed her to find out why, and I could hear her crying. I know you two are having problems, she said. That's obvious. And I got the impression you moved out of the house to be with someone else. Well, you're wrong, Mom, I said emphatically. I'm not cheating on Jennifer. I don't know what Jennifer told you, but that's not true. I wondered what Jennifer had said. I knew my mother had a tendency to jump to conclusions sometimes, and I wanted to believe that's what had happened, and that Jennifer hadn't lied to her. It's true that we're having problems, Mom, but it has nothing to do with me cheating on her. Believe me. We continued talking, and by the time we hung up, I was fairly sure I had convinced my mother that I wasn't cheating on my wife. I decided to take a few minutes to calm down before calling Jennifer. I went down to the cafeteria and grabbed a cup of coffee from the machine and sat there sipping it for a while. When I returned to my office, I pretended I had a client on the phone, giving myself more time to settle down. By the time the business call ended, it was lunchtime and I didn't get around to calling Jennifer until almost 1:30 in the afternoon. Hello? I heard my wife's voice. Hi, I said, my voice still tinged with anger. How are you? You mean aside from missing my husband? She asked. Yeah, aside from that, I replied. Well, physically I'm fine, but emotionally I'm a wreck, she said. I know I screwed up, Marcus. Big time. I know I've hurt you terribly, and if you just give me a second chance, I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you. I sighed to myself. I was getting tired of hearing the same old promises. I'd heard it so many times it was starting to lose its meaning. Then I remembered why I had called her. What did you say to my mom the other day? What do you mean? I told her you'd made other plans, she explained. Why? Well, she called earlier today and accused me of cheating on you. What? Jennifer sounded confused. Oh, honey, I never said anything like that, she said in a panicked voice. I honestly have no idea how she got that idea. She knew we were having problems, that's for sure. She said you gave her the impression I moved out of the house so I could be with someone else. Oh, Marcus, I don't know what I said that made her think that, she continued. She kept asking questions when I told her we couldn't make it on Saturday, but I never said anything about you and another woman. I talked to her a little longer, and by the end of the conversation, I was mostly convinced that she hadn't said anything to my mother about me being with someone else. The following Saturday, I picked up the kids as usual. I thought about telling them I would be coming home the next day, but for some reason, I kept holding off. I was almost sure at that point that I was going to give our marriage another chance. I knew Jennifer would agree to counseling, but there was still a nagging feeling deep in my stomach. For the most part, the day went wonderfully. We went to the car museum in a nearby town, then took a boat tour on one of the local lakes. But I noticed Madison was awfully quiet. I wondered if she was having boyfriend troubles. Maybe relationship problems ran in our family, I thought to myself. It wasn't until the end of the day that I found out why she was so upset. And that's when I realized that my wife had made the second biggest mistake of her life. As I dropped them off, Madison stayed in the car. "Dad," she asked, her voice starting to crack. "Are you cheating on Mom? Did you move out so you could be with another woman?" If I thought I was flabbergasted when my mom had asked me the same thing, it was nothing compared to hearing it from my own daughter. "No, honey, absolutely not. Where did you get that idea?" A tear ran down her cheek as she spoke. "I heard Mom talking to Grandma the other day. Mom didn't know I was listening. She told Grandma that you moved out and she suspected you had a girlfriend." My heart sank. This was it. The end. After telling Jennifer several times there would be no more lies, she just couldn't seem to help herself. How could she ever regain my trust if she kept lying? The answer was simple. She couldn't. For the past couple of months, I had been talking myself into going home. And just when I had made the decision, she had ruined it. I swore to my daughter there was no one else and that I had never cheated on her mother. Then I asked her to make sure everyone would be home Sunday afternoon. I hated to think about it, but I knew what I had to do. That night, the hurt and pain I had been feeling for so long gave way to pure sadness. I didn't think I had any tears left, but I was wrong. I cried almost all night. It felt like the end of the life I had known for the last 20 years. A life I had cherished. Regrettably, I took the time I needed to prepare for the next day. I called ahead to make sure everyone would be there when I arrived. I asked that everyone take a seat in the living room and place the tape recorder on the coffee table. I looked at Jennifer sitting across from me. She had a puzzled look on her face. She never asked how I had found out about her and Brandon and had no idea what was about to happen. With everyone sitting within earshot, I hit the play button. The recording started and Jennifer's face immediately changed when she heard the voice on the tape. She frantically asked, "What is that, Marcus? Turn that off. Please turn it off." Her voice was full of panic. I hit the stop button. That was all I had intended to play. I wanted to make sure Jennifer couldn't turn the kids against me with more lies. The children sat in stunned silence for a few seconds. Madison was the first to speak. "You told Grandma Dad was cheating on you. You lied. It was you. You're the one who cheated, not Dad." "Mom, how could you do this?" Jennifer had tears running down her face as she looked down at the floor. She knew this was the end of our marriage, just as I did. That's when Sophia stirred things up even more. "How could you do this? You've broken up our family. I hate you. I'll never forgive you. I'm ashamed you're even my mother," she shouted before running upstairs to her room. Jennifer started crying harder, and both Ethan and Grace just sat there. You could see the pain in their eyes as they stared at their mother. "How could you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "How could you be so cruel to the children?" I looked at the kids and said softly, "I'm sorry you had to hear that, but as I said before, there will be no more lies in this family. Your mother and I need to be alone." I turned to Madison, still sitting there with tears streaming down her face. "Honey, would you take your brother and sister upstairs for me? Please? And don't worry too much. Okay? We're still a family, and we both still love you kids as much as ever. We'll find a way to work this out. I promise." Madison wiped the tears from her eyes and nodded, acknowledging what I said, but I knew she didn't really believe it. She took Ethan and Grace by the hand and led them upstairs. I waited until they were out of earshot, then turned back to Jennifer. "What did you think? Did you really think I would just accept all this? Did you think I would take the blame for everything?" I shook my head. "How could you be so cruel? How could you do this to our family?" Jennifer had her hands covering her face, but she still asked, "Where did you get that tape?" I took a deep breath. After Sophia got that call at 2 in the morning, I bugged our phone to record his voice and see if Sophia knew who he was. Imagine how I felt when I went through the recordings and found your conversation with Brandon. "Oh my God," Jennifer whispered. "You must have been devastated. I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to find out." "You still here?" I said, my voice rising. Let me ask you something. When you were going around behind my back with Brandon, did you really think it was only me you were hurting? You were hurting the kids, too. You were hurting our parents, our friends. You let everyone down. You hurt them all just to satisfy your own selfish desires. I paused, trying to keep my emotions in check. You've let the children down. Never did they think you would do something like this, something that could jeopardize their happiness and future. How do you think your parents are going to feel when they find out the daughter they raised to be a good moral person has been lying and cheating behind our backs just to satisfy your own needs? What about my parents? How are they going to feel when they find out how you betrayed me? I wiped away a tear. You want to know the real kicker? I was planning on coming home today. I was all set to give us a second chance. But then my mom called saying you told her I was cheating on you. When I asked you about it, you lied to me again. After everything, after I told you there would be no more lies, you lied again. I know you lied because yesterday Madison asked me the same question. She said she overheard you talking to Grandma and you mentioned you thought I had a girlfriend. That's when I knew I could never trust you. I said, my voice steady but hurt. Jennifer sat there shaking her head. I thought if I came back, we could go to counseling. I continued, my voice catching a little. Maybe they'd help me deal with the pain. I knew trust would be hard to rebuild, but I thought you had learned your lesson. But then when I realized you lied to me over the phone, I knew you hadn't. You were still lying. You were still untrustworthy. I paused, taking a deep breath. I knew what I had to do, but it still felt like the hardest thing I had ever had to face. Jennifer, I don't want to spend the rest of my life sitting in my office wondering what you're doing or getting suspicious when you tell me you're going shopping with a friend. I just can't do it. As much as I want my happy home back, it wouldn't work. Not anymore. Oh, Marcus. Oh my God. I wish I could turn the clock back. She cried, her voice breaking. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was so afraid of you finding out someday. So afraid of hurting you. That's why I didn't meet Brandon the last time. But you were going to, weren't you? If not, you wouldn't have hidden that black teddy from me. Jennifer nodded slowly. Yes, I admit at first I was going to go, but I changed my mind. I didn't call Brandon and tell him I wasn't coming because I didn't want to give him another chance to pull me back in. I sighed, the weight of everything pressing down on me. It doesn't matter now. It's over. Tomorrow I'll file for divorce. I want you to know I still love you, but I can't keep you as my wife anymore. I'll probably always love you, but it's time to end this. She didn't say anything. She just kept crying and I had to leave her there. I'll go up and talk to the kids, I said quietly. See if I can get them to understand and let them know what's going on. I stood up and walked upstairs. The house was silent except for the sound of crying. Ethan had his own room, as did Madison since she was the oldest. Grace and Sophia shared the fourth bedroom. The crying I heard was coming from the girls' room. I poked my head in Ethan's room and asked if he'd go to Madison's. Then did the same with Sophia and Grace. When I went into Madison's room, they were all waiting for me. I sat on the bed and everyone crowded around me. Grace sat on my lap, her arms wrapped around my neck. Kids, I said softly, my voice breaking. I can't tell you how sorry I am that your mother and I are putting you through this. Your mom didn't do this to hurt us. None of us. She didn't think we'd ever find out. Unfortunately, we did. And now everyone is hurt. Grace laid her head against my chest. I kissed the top of her head and continued. This doesn't mean we're not still a family. We are, and we all need to support each other. That includes your mom. Dad, Sophia said, her voice angry. If you think I'm ever going to talk to her again, you're wrong. She shook her head. I hate her. I'll never forgive her. Never. Sophia, look, I said, trying to keep my composure. I know you're angry right now, but don't be too hard on your mom. She's human. Humans make mistakes. Dad, going behind your back to be with another man is not a mistake, Sophia said firmly. She knew exactly what she was doing. She betrayed you and she betrayed us. I'll never forgive her. I found it hard to argue with her logic. She was right. What could I say? I hoped that with time Sophia would find some way to forgive her mother. Not for Jennifer's sake, but for her own. Holding on to hate only hurt the person who was angry. I spent more than an hour upstairs talking with the kids. They were all hurt, disappointed, and angry with their mom. It wasn't easy for me either, but secretly a part of me thought good. Jennifer got herself into this mess. Let her deal with the consequences. By the time I went back downstairs, Jennifer had poured herself a cup of coffee and was sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly into space. I poured myself a cup and sat down at the opposite end of the table. "What happens next?" she asked, her voice distant, as if in a trance. "Tomorrow I'll file for divorce," I said, my voice sad, but resigned. "From what I know about Ohio law, I expect you'll get the house and custody of the kids. I'll have to pay child support and maybe some maintenance, but I doubt you'll be able to live on that alone. You'll probably have to go out and get a job." Jennifer nodded slowly. "I was waitressing when I met you," she said softly. "I'll probably go back to it. It's the only thing I know." We sat in silence for a few moments before she looked up at me, her eyes filled with regret. "I have to ask, Marcus, why wasn't I man enough for you? Why would you do this to me? I thought we were happy together," I said, my voice trembling. Jennifer looked at me with pain in her eyes, then burst into tears again. "Oh God, why?" She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. "I wish I could explain it to you, Marcus. The truth is, I don't know. It wasn't because you weren't good enough. That I can promise you. It was just different." She wiped her eyes, her hands shaking. "Even when we were teenagers, Brandon always had a certain reputation. He wasn't the biggest or the strongest, but he had confidence and experience that others didn't. He once told me he learned a lot from older people. I don't know if that was true or not." She sighed deeply as if lost in memories. "When I was 16, I decided it was time to have a boyfriend. Almost all the girls had one by then, and I set my sights on Brandon. I knew people would envy me. He would never be with someone he didn't like, so I let things happen. He was my first." Jennifer stopped, staring into her cup of coffee. "We were together until he graduated and went to college. I wasn't fooling myself. I knew he would move on. A year later, after I graduated, I got a job as a waitress, and things between us changed. We became just friends who sometimes spent time together. During the summer, we were exclusive, but during the school year, we dated other people. It was like that until his senior year when he met Megan. That's when he really changed. Honestly, I never thought he'd betray her. I still don't understand how it happened. Couldn't help it." I snapped. "All right, he was your first. But why did you decide to go back to him after all these years?" She took a shaky breath. "I don't know how to explain it, Marcus. You asked for the truth and I've learned my lesson. I swear I'll never lie again." "Never mind," I muttered, feeling my chest tighten. "I get it. You just missed him. I don't need to hear more." Jennifer shook her head. "You're misunderstanding me, Marcus. It's not about him being better or worse. It was just different." She looked at me, sadness in her eyes. "Do you know when I fell in love with you? It was the first time we were together. You didn't just be with me. You made me feel special. No one had ever made me feel like that before. That's when I knew I wanted to be with you forever." I clenched my fists. "Jennifer, you're still avoiding the real question." She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to find the right words. Over time, I started wondering if things had changed. One day, I ran into Brandon at a restaurant. We were just talking, reminiscing. Then, he asked if I remembered the way things used to be. She paused for a second. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, but then we crossed paths again and it happened again. She stood up, taking a sip of coffee. "He convinced me that no one would ever find out. That's why it went on for years. I don't know why I kept going back. It seems so ridiculous to me now." A few hours of excitement followed by days of guilt. She took a deep breath. "Sometimes I wondered why you never noticed, and then I realized you trusted me too much. That only made it worse." She blew on her coffee. "Do you remember that morning you left without saying goodbye?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I whispered. "That was the first real sign that things were falling apart," she said. regret heavy in her voice. I really didn't think you knew anything about Brandon. How could you? But there was definitely something wrong, and it made me realize the risk I was taking. I decided right then there would be no more mistakes. Not with Brandon or anyone else. Jennifer's voice trembled as she spoke. I know you're probably tired of hearing this, Marcus, but I am sorry. I've hurt you and the kids, and I'll never forgive myself for that. I stood up from the table. I'm afraid that makes two of us, I said. I walked upstairs to say goodbye to the kids. They were all huddled in Madison's room. Guys, have I ever let you down? I asked. The answer was unanimous. A firm no or a shake of the head. They all agreed I had never let them down. And I won't now either. I'm still your dad and I'll always be here when you need me. I'm getting an apartment close by, so all you have to do is call and I'll be there. Even though I won't be living here anymore, we're still a family. That will never change. Before I left, we showered each other with hugs and kisses. If I live to be 100, I'll never forget the sadness in my heart as I walked down the steps of the front porch that day, leaving my life behind. Jennifer agreed to everything I asked for in the divorce. The one thing I insisted on was visitation rights. She said no matter what the court decided, I could see the kids anytime for as long as I wanted. Within 3 months, Jennifer found a job waitressing. Wouldn't you know it, she started working at Denny's, the very same place I frequented. It's like that old line, of all the Denny's in all the towns in all the world. She told the judge she was making over $300 a week in tips and didn't need maintenance, just child support. The judge still awarded her a year's worth of maintenance, but significantly reduced the amount. It didn't take long for me to see how hard life would be for Jennifer now. Her infidelity cost her dearly. The worst part was losing the respect of our kids. Despite all my efforts, they treated her terribly. Sophia was the cruelest. Madison even told me she heard Sophia introduce Jennifer to a friend as, "That whore over there is my mom." I heard she even spat in Jennifer's face once. Jennifer just ran into her bedroom crying. I knew she brought this on herself, but I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. Jennifer had no social life. The kids told me she never went anywhere. She lost most of her friends and didn't even talk on the phone much. There were no men in her life. She didn't date. In fact, she hadn't gone on a date since the divorce. My parents wouldn't talk to her anymore, and her relationship with her own parents was strained. On top of all that, she worked long, hard hours on her feet trying to provide for the kids despite the hostility they showed her. I haven't spoken to her much, but I have a feeling she sees her life now as a form of penance. As for me, even though I paid child support, I lived fairly comfortably. I did some dating here and there, but never found anyone I considered special. A year after signing the lease for my first apartment, I moved to a bigger place. When Madison graduated high school, she asked if she could stay with me until college started. When she moved out of the house, she told Jennifer in no uncertain terms that she was severing ties with her mother and didn't care if she ever saw her again. 2 years later, Sophia did the same. As a bachelor, I kept busy with work, which helped cut down on the loneliness. I had one friend with benefits, but mostly I lived for my kids. Madison will be starting her sophomore year of college next month. Sophia landed a great job with an advertising firm right out of high school and is now dating a young man from work. I've met him and like him a lot. Ethan and Grace still live with their mother. They tell me Jennifer still isn't dating. Neither of them is as hard on her as Sophia and Madison were, but from what they tell me, Jennifer hasn't smiled in a long time. I saw Ryan Grant a week ago. He and his wife tried to make their marriage work, but all they did was fight and ended up divorcing. As for Megan, I never heard from her again. I assume she went back to Michigan like she said she would. I never spoke to her after that night at the Queen's Crown. One of the highlights of my current life came the other day when I visited an old friend. Do you know what the statute of limitations is on assault and battery in Ohio? I asked Brandon. After all this time, he was still in a nursing home. Megan was right. He was never capable of going back to work and now lived on disability, still unable to walk. He sat in his wheelchair and said he didn't know the answer to my question. 3 years, I said with a smile. Do you know how long it's been since someone beat you up? He wasn't sure. So I'll tell you, it's been 3 years and one day. I knelt down to his level, looked him straight in the eyes and said, "And do you know why you're here? Because that's what I do to guys who think they can get away with screwing my wife." I gave him the biggest smile I could muster and walked out while he broke down in tears. If you look at our lives now, you could say I came out of this a lot better than Jennifer. But honestly, there were no winners in this, only losers. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.